Well, my name is Ben, and I'm here to say, Iranian vampires, that's okay.
And my name is Steve, and I got to say that I will watch this any old day.
Welcome, dead and lovely listeners, to the old schoolest, hip-hoppiest horror movie review podcast in this multiverse and the next. Why, of course, you're listening to Dead and Lovely, the absolute greatest source for all things horror, here with your host. It's me, your good buddy, Uncle Benjamin.
And me, Hollywood Steven. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, we're using
Take
full
two.
names.
Hollywood Land Steven.
Yeah, just going full length, right?
Hollywood's in trouble when its mom says, Hollywood Land.
That's when you know the switch is coming out.
Yeah.
What was your mom's beating tool, by the way? Let's find out about this.
Fly swatter. Yeah.
Fly swatter. Classic. And disgusting, too, because I'm getting disappointed.
Yeah, it's got
and
fly
this has
guts on
fly
it.
guts on it. This is disgusting. Man, a good old-fashioned wooden spoon was never too far out of reach.
Don't want that. I mean, you think it's short and little, so it's not going to hurt, but they get a lot of oomph in there.
Mm-hmm, but enough about my penis, okay?
Hey-o.
Thank you. Moving on. And we are here today to be talking about A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, which is apparently unconnected to the Home Alone universe. I'm disappointed.
I just don't see how, honestly. I mean, what do you got?
A lot of similarities,
You got someone who isn't very big against a criminal element.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, similar.
It's the same. It's the same movie.
Basically, yes, same movie.
I think this movie would be better, though, if she did set an elaborate amount of, crazy improvised booby traps that led people into, falling onto her teeth at the end. The movie's completely the same, other than that.
There's not enough Bugs Bunny style violence in vampire movies.
No, not even close. But before we get to the movie review, of course, we're going to chit-chat about what we've been catching up and watching this week. We're going to drink a code beer. We're going to talk a little vampire history and stuff.
True.
If you're one of those lamos that doesn't want to hang out with us, if you think you're better than us, I'm just way more handsome than these guys, I don't need to hang out with them or anything like that, you can skip on to the movie review. There's a timestamp in the podcast description.
Get on.
Use it up. Be that
Get on
way.
out of here.
Go on, get. No, nobody loves you.
Nobody likes you here. Oh, go on, Harry. We're the Hendersons.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't remember all the Lithgow lines, but he said a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that he did. How you been doing this week, Steve? Everything good?
Yeah, man. It's been a good week. I just been chilling out, maxing, relaxing on cool, and I had a little whiskey the other night as a sort of celebration / moment of dread for the future.
I know what you mean, man, because, we recorded this just after the U.S. presidential election, but I know that what you're referencing is the fact that Alex Trebek died, and that Ken Jennings guy is probably going to replace him as the host. I'm dreading it a little bit.
And I've been saying this whole time, Canadians over Mormons any day.
Wow. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like you can't argue with the math. It's all right there.
You can't.
Can't argue with the numbers.
Yeah, I went and bought a bottle of Old Forester, 100 proof.
Uh-huh.
And boy, that's some nice, delicious, spicy bourbon.
That is some nice-ass stuff, man. I think what I've been sipping on this week the most is a Basil Hayden's Dark Rye. Have you ever had this?
Oh, yes, I have. I like me some Basil
I'm
Hayden's.
not usually a big Basil Hayden's fan because it's 80 proof and the finish is so quick. It's one of those ultra clean tasting bourbons where as soon as you sip it and swallow, you don't really have any taste left over.
Yeah.
But I got the Dark Rye on a whim, which is blended with port and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Ooh, damn.
And it's pretty awesome. It's very unique, man. It's got a very interesting after-dinner wine sort of taste to it with the port in there, but it's still nice and spicy. Made a really nice old-fashioned for me there.
Oh, hell yeah. Awesome.
Very, very
good,
good,
give that
man.
a try.
And I know what you mean about the excitement / potential dread going on with the presidential election results. I mean, I think anybody that listens to this show on the regular probably knows where we stand as far as just like, boy, am I excited to not have Trump as president? Of course I am. Sure I am.
Sure, yeah. Am I excited to have Biden as president?
No, not really.
No. But you know what? It's better than Trump, at least.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of the people that like listen to the show and give a shit for getting political every now and then. Well, maybe this will be your turn now because we're also not going to give him a free pass for any dumb stuff that happens in the next 4 years. So
no fucking way. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Was that people have only heard our politics when it was anti-Trump. I mean,
that's true. Yeah, the show has just existed in Trump's America. So
yeah, I've said before I was not an Obama fan. Don't like drone strikes. Not a big fan of cozying up to corporate interests.
No.
Not expecting Biden's presidency to be much different. So, if you're a Trump supporter who's pushed through this whole time, you'll at least get to hear every once in a while some fuck Biden. So,
yeah, some for everybody. Because believe it or not, it's possible to be disappointed with the entire system as a whole.
Yeah,
believe it or not.
You don't have to pick a team, honestly. No, you can hold your politicians accountable and vote for the ones that have your policies, the things you want, instead of just constantly voting for your team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. That's the idea, man. That's the idea. So we'll see how it goes. I'm willing to give it a shot. Give it the old college try, right?
Yeah. I mean, hey, maybe it'll be great. Maybe it'll be the best, 2 years of our lives before Joe Budden dies.
Of old age.
Of what, like 700 years old in 2 years?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's right. Man. Well, Steve, you been watching anything good now that we're done with all this election nonsense?
Yeah. I've been getting down with some good stuff. In fact, I've watched a few movies I'd never seen, like is it The Wolf of White Hollow? That's it, Snow Hollow. Wolf of Snow Hollow. I keep mixing it up with The Wolf of Wall Street because I think it's a prequel. The Wolf of Snow Hollow. Man, I'll tell you what. I think it was well written and well directed. I don't think the writer-director should have cast himself as the lead.
That's just what our buddy Brandon Suttles said. Yeah, he said the same thing.
I think that, like, his humor's good on paper, but he can't convey it as well as maybe somebody else could have. So, but it definitely had its merits, and the creature design looks really cool. So I think it's worth a watch if you're just like, I want to put something on and, something that's not too complicated. It's just a werewolf movie.
Okay. I was curious about it. I watched the trailer for it and I was like, it looks unique. I thought that just from the trailer that it looked like some of the acting was going to be kind of rough. That's probably from the guy that you're talking about, but it still did intrigue me enough that I'm like, okay, this is on my to-watch list, so I'm sure that I'll check it out sometime soon.
Yeah, it's all right. It's not something to rush out to. I did watch Possessor, which people have been
blowing up about this, man. My good buddy Eric Hill was just blowing me up last night, being like, dude, stop what you're doing right now and watch this movie. Now, this is from the son of the Cronenberg, yeah?
Yeah, it's Brandon Cronenberg. If you haven't seen David Cronenberg's Existence, I could see somebody looking at Brandon Cronenberg's Possessor and being like, where would he come up with such an idea? From David Cronenberg's Existence, from his dad's movie. In fact, he even makes a reference to it by having Jennifer Jason Leigh in the movie. He's developing on an idea his dad had. I'm not saying this in a negative way. I'm not saying he's like just stealing from his dad. I'm saying like he saw his dad had a pretty good idea with maybe like not the greatest execution, and he updated it to a modern audience.
Now, hang on here, Steve. Are you reviewing Possession, or are you reviewing the New Testament as told by Jesus? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I think so. It's basically the New Testament.
His dad had some good ideas. The execution was a little rough. Needs some modernization.
I think for sure that Possessor is probably the more... I'd say it's the more solid film, though I love Existence. I've talked about it before. I think it's, that movie's definitely worth watching. It was ahead of its time, I think. But I think Possessors may be better and has a better perspective than Existence did. But either way, both of those are worth a watch for sure. And Possessor is brutal. It is brutal. Yes.
What about the effects and stuff in Possessor there? I've heard that the practical effects are insane.
Yeah, they are. I watched the uncut. I heard that you have to watch the uncut, so I just watched the uncut.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's cut out, but the stuff that's in there is really great and absolutely brutal stuff. Just
awesome.
Very bloody movie.
Okay, well, I'm excited for that already.
Yeah, so definitely go check that out. And then I thought I had seen this before, but I hadn't. As Above, So Below.
Oh yeah, I talked about that a couple of years ago on the show. It's just like, it's pretty cool. It's an all right movie.
It is. It is pretty cool. It's an all right movie. Basically, Indiana Jones goes to hell. Like, pretty cool. I liked that. I found it very entertaining. So I had a pretty good week of watching things. Ben, what you been watching on?
Man, ain't nothing horror. I'll tell you that. I've really not watched anything horror other than the movie that we're talking about today. I've had a pretty soft going, easy week. I've just been being a big old cream puff marshmallow softy this week, all right? So I watched Little Miss Sunshine, which is one of my go-to, always watchable movies. That's just like such a fucking great movie, man. I really, really enjoyed that one a lot.
Yeah, it is. I haven't seen it in a while.
Yeah. Oh, it's
need to check it
still
back out.
Every bit as good as you remember, man. Really, really good. I also watched through the entire last season of Schitt's Creek, which I've been talking about for the past couple months on the show. Kate and I finished it the other night, and dude, it's absolutely fantastic. It is a wonderful show with characters in it that, like, the first couple episodes, you're like, there's no way, you know, these characters are going to grow on me and stuff, but they have a way of really humanizing them and making them relatable in a lot of ways while still being ridiculous and hilarious. It's really, really, really fantastic. And I think that it ended so very well. And now, like, all the seasons are on Netflix now. Because, like, they could have drug it out and done a 10 or 12 season run like they do with a lot of sitcoms, you know?
Yeah, I gotta check that because I've watched the first episode and for some reason haven't gotten back to it, but I thought it was funny and I've heard everybody loves it, so definitely I'm interested. And everybody seems to have liked the finale, which is something you don't get a lot with shows, so that's awesome.
Yeah, definitely check it out. If you don't like it, I think I would be very surprised, honestly.
Okay.
Like, the first season, I just thought was kind of okay. But then it's like, after you kind of get into season 2 is when you really start getting to know the characters. It's not even like one of those deals where it's like, oh, they didn't develop the characters right away in the first season.
Yeah.
It's like, well, no, it's just I didn't really know them that well. They were pretty well all developed entirely in the first season, but it just takes some time to get to know them and stuff. So really, really, really loved that. Very fantastic. Watched the Borat sequel the other night.
Yeah,
on,
I watched
Amazon.
it, I think the day after it came out, and I'm glad you finally got to it so we can talk about it.
Yeah.
What'd you think?
It is a ridiculous movie. It is
Yeah.
very, very, very fucking silly. There was some stuff in there that was hysterical.
Yeah.
With a movie like this, it's really going to be hard to duplicate the success and the hilarity of the original, because when the original came out, I mean, how long was that? 10-something years ago?
Yeah.
14 years ago, something like that? I can't remember.
It's been a while.
You know, it was just like so out of nowhere. It was this crazy hidden camera, you know, kind of candid camera sort of movie with all these skits and everything in there. Nobody had really ever seen anything like that before. At least I hadn't in theaters. It was so over the top.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard to recreate that, especially when the character of Borat can't even be out in public because people know him now. He's Borat, you know?
Yeah.
But I think the way that they framed this movie together to deal with that was very good in terms of him having to be in different disguises and him having his daughter with him and stuff. And she's kind of like the lead in a lot of the hidden camera stuff, really.
Yeah.
I thought that they worked around it very nicely and also tied it in with the pandemic and everything else very well too.
Yeah, I really, man, when he walked into the what is it called? Fuck, that cotillion thing, and they end up doing that
Debutante
dance.
Ball. Oh my God, there was some really hilarious stuff. And I think my favorite part in there was whenever he went to like the pregnancy crisis clinic, and he's like, I put the baby in her.
You take the baby out.
The cupcake. Yeah. Fucking amazing, man. But yeah, it was really, really good. Totally worth a watch. I enjoyed it a lot. Mm-hmm. And then I think the only other thing that I watched this week is last night for my Docu-Monday pick, where we watch a documentary every Monday. I chose to watch a thing that was on HBO called The Extreme. It's really, really a clumsy, long title, extremely long title. Truth and Lies, Jonestown, Paradise Lost. It's like 3 people got to name it, and they just chose them all.
Okay. And what did you find out? What truth and lies did you find out?
Honestly, nothing.
Okay.
It was okay. It was one of those things that was kind of like on the level of like a 90s ABC documentary, late night kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or Dateline kind of thing, I guess. It was good. It was a lot of stuff that I already knew, but it had a ton of footage that I hadn't seen before, and it had like interviews with Jim Jones Jr. and all kinds of crazy shit. A bunch of survivors, that made it off of the island or left before they went. I said off the island. Fucking Guyana's not an island.
Right.
But you know what I mean. That made it out of Jonestown alive or left the church before they went to Jonestown and stuff. Really fascinating. I'm just endlessly fascinated by Jonestown and cults and stuff like that. I think it's really cool. So I'll watch anything about it.
I would love to find out that like the central lie they were exposing was it wasn't actually Flavor Aid, it was Savor Aid, which is like an off-brand of Flavor Aid. Like he somehow saved even more money on killing everybody.
He was really, really frugal, that guy.
Just a
really
cheap
thrifty
guy. I don't know what he was gonna do with the money.
I think my favorite part of watching it, though, is the fact that we watched it pretty late at night, and Kate was really tired. We both had a really long day, so she fell asleep on the couch about 30 minutes away from the end of it. And like after Jonestown was over, I just put on like I was working some recording and stuff, so I was just like, I'll put on Hellraiser 2 while I edit these drum tracks or whatever. So I had Hellraiser 2 on, and at one point she woke up on the couch and like put her head up and looked at the screen. And she has, like, no memory of this. This is totally just one of those, like, in-your-sleep kind of moments. But she woke up and looked at the screen, and she goes, Jonestown was really fucked up. And then goes back to sleep. It was some scene where somebody was getting, like, ripped apart by hooks or something. It's like, wow, Jonestown was bad.
That's a lot rougher than I heard.
Come to Jonestown. We have such sights to show you.
Oh, no.
Dude, they did have a fucking boxing ring in Jonestown. They didn't talk about that on the documentary, but... in Jonestown, they had a boxing ring that they would use for public punishment. Basically, like if somebody misbehaved or like, talked shit or whatever, they'd put like a 70-year-old person that told a lie or whatever in a boxing ring with like a young, healthy 20-year-old and make them fight 10 rounds.
Jesus.
Yeah, in Jonestown. They did this.
Holy hell.
Cults are crazy, man.
I'm not moving there now. I thought it sounded like a good place.
That's right. Cancel my trip. I'm out.
Hey, you know what? Cancel all of Jonestown. They're out of here.
Yeah. Hashtag cancel Jonestown. You heard it here first.
We might be like 30-something years late.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Man, Steve, I'll tell you what, dude. All of this chatting we've been doing.
Chitter chat.
There's something about it that's got my mouth so dry. Is yours dry?
Yeah, it's an arid desert for sure.
Ooh, man, I got tumbleweeds falling out of my face. What do you think we ought to do about this?
I think we should probably just snap into a Slim Jim, see what happens.
Oh yeah?
Yeah? Can you imagine? Yeah. Can you imagine with a dry mouth trying to eat a Slim Jim?
Woo, it greased it up real good,
terrible.
I think.
That's
true. The last time I had a Slim Jim.
Long ago. Let's drink a beer and think about it.
Okay. What are we going to drink on?
We got this Fourth Tap Kung Fu Robot.
Kung Fu Robot.
It's a robot that does Kung Fu. Now, I don't know much about this other than it's an IPA.
Yep. It says on the label it's like balanced as far as like the hoppiness, the bitterness, the sweetness. Everything's kind of right there in the middle according to their gauges. So we'll find out about it. But you know what? Honestly, just like going into this with the expectation of, oh, it's just a regular IPA. it doesn't taste like fucking Lucky Charms or a key lime pie or something. I'm like, okay, cool.
I'll tell you this. Just took a drink of it. It tastes like an IPA. It's like
Let's find out.
just a nice bold IPA flavor. Pretty simple.
Well, that's good as hell. I'll tell you that, man. I'm,
Yeah.
I'm thinking that regular is the new exotic. It's the most regular,
that's
extreme regular.
That's gonna be the sequel documentary to Joe Exotic, Jim Regular.
I like this a lot.
Jim Regular. I don't own a single tiger.
I just got house cats. It's fine as normal. They're smaller than tigers and easier to care for.
I do not do meth. I'm uninterested in drugs entirely. This is going to be a boring documentary. It's me, Jim Regular.
This is pretty good.
Yeah,
Like, I'm very okay with this. I'm very on board with
like
this.
a second drink of it, I was like, this is like something you could, like with a burger. Like, you know, you
Oh,
don't want to
yeah.
have like an overpowering beer with a burger. You want it to just kind of slosh that food down, and this does it.
That's right. This could give you a good beverage for a food meal.
Good beverage for food meal. Put that
A
on the
meal
can.
Of food. A food meal IPA is what we're drinking right here. I enjoy it, man. It's good. It's like, what else do
good
you
stuff.
want, man? It's hoppy. It's a little bitter. It's a little sweet. It's got alcohol in there. I'm all right with
I
all
like
that stuff.
that. Yeah, that's the good part.
I like all of them things. Well, Steve, now that we're here fixing our dusty mouth situation, I think before we get into the movie review, I would like just to simmer down here and go soak in the frothy, steaming hot tub that is the Preview Palace for a minute.
Welcome to the Preview Palace.
Ooh, you got that draconian accent, do you?
It's me, Dracula. Blah.
Transylvania. Oh, I'll tell you what, that is another thing that I did watch this week. For some reason, like every night that I've been up late, whether that be editing video or editing music, because I got a bunch of music projects and stuff right now, I've just had Bram Stoker's Dracula on in the background, like
Solid.
almost every night this
Yeah.
week. Almost every night, I've just had it on.
Yeah, good choice.
It's just the choice that you make that makes sense. It was just like, well, this makes sense right now to do this, so I'm not even going to fight it. Sometimes I do those very irrational things where it's like, well, let's watch this for the 5th time. Feels right. Just do it.
Get deep into that. Bram Stoker's Dracula. Well, Ben, since you're talking about Bram Stoker's Dracula, that book is considered, you know, the first major vampire novel.
That's right.
many.
That's right.
So I wanted to introduce you to some of the firsts, Ben, regarding vampires. Because this movie right here, A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, first Farsi language vampire movie, and the first Middle Eastern set vampire movie.
That is bizarre because you're talking about a movie that was made in, what, 2015, 16?
Yeah, 2014. Mm-hmm.
It's been that long, and we haven't had that yet.
Yeah, and
That's crazy.
That's particularly interesting because the Persians were one of the first civilizations believed to have tales of blood-drinking monsters.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah.
You don't say.
It's very interesting that it took them that long to be like, yeah, let's make a movie about it.
Huh. That's really interesting. So we're going to kick this list of vampire firsts off with first time we saw a vampire's butthole in a movie. Steve, take it away.
First vampire butthole in a movie, of course, was Vampirella XXX.
I want to suck your butt, I think was the, the secondary title of that.
That was the log line, yeah.
Butt-sucking vampires.
Butt-sucking vampires. So I've put together a list of firsts here, Ben.
Okay.
It's a pretty solid list. I'm going to tell you right now, the majority of these firsts precede Bram Stoker's Dracula novel.
What? Whoa. What?
Yeah. So when you think about Bram Stoker's Dracula, I remember hearing this as a kid on a show. It was one of those, like, you know, shows that treated mythological creatures like they were serious. And they talked about vampires, and I remember them being like, Bram Stoker organized a bunch of, like, loose tales he had heard from peasants and things, and that's not even close to true. Let's talk about let's talk about some firsts with vampires in Europe.
Steve, are you telling me, like, is the next thing you're going to tell me here that Elvis didn't invent rock and roll and rhythm and blues? Come on. There's got to be limits here.
Not even close. So this all starts in 1718, Ben, when Austria...
Old school.
Yeah, way back in the day, when Austria gained control of northern Serbia and Oltenia, which is part of modern-day Romania. So reports started coming out from Austrian officials between 1725 and 1732 of local practices of exhuming bodies and killing vampires.
Oh, shit.
So these are the first reports, widespread reports throughout Europe of what would be known as vampires. They use the word vampire because before that, things like revenants existed and draugr and all sorts of other like different creatures that we would associate with vampires.
Okay.
But this 1725, beginning with the report about Piotr Blagojevich, who at the age of 62 died and then supposedly came back to life and then came to his son's house asking for food. His son refused, and then his son died the next day. And then 8 more villagers were found dead later on, and they had been exsanguinated.
Oh my God, their blood was gone.
Yeah, so this is the first widespread report of a vampire, and it actually started a vampire hysteria across the majority of Europe that even made it to America. So,
damn.
Yeah, people were worried about the possibility of vampires way back in 1718. But then we got people who were like, "Oh, vampires! Let's write some fiction about them. That's fun, right?"
Enter Stephanie Myers.
Enter Stephanie Meyer in 1748. Here she comes.
Oh, Lord, she coming.
So, the first intentionally fictitious portrayal of a vampire came in 1748. Now, I say intentionally fictitious because there are books before this that are like religious texts that are treating vampires as though they're a serious thing. So those are fictitious too, but this is intentionally fictitious. It's called Dear Vampire, written by Heinrich Ossenfelder.
The Germans with their super creative titles. What are you gonna call it?
Thing,
the Vampire.
It was creative back then because it was a word people had just started saying. It would
All
be
right,
like naming it your novel Yeet. Like, well, I guess that's already old. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, so
we're hip.
This was basically there was a spurned lover. It's a pretty short poem. A spurned lover who is vaguely anti-Christian threatens a pious maiden that he will drink her blood and lead her away from religion.
Look out.
So that, I mean, that's pretty well ingrained in the vampire. That idea of them being both anti-Christian and out for blood, right?
Heathens.
So 50-ish years later, we get the first mention of vampires in English literature. And I know I've talked about John Polidori's The Vampire before, but he was not the first person to mention vampires in English literature. It was, in fact, Robert Southey in his epic poem, Thalaba the Destroyer. But it really wasn't about vampires. So it just mentions them, along with all sorts of other creatures and shit. Wow. But it was, in fact, John Polidori, who, as we talked about, I think, when we did the Scare Me episode, on a summer vacation at Lake Geneva with Shelley, Mary Shelley, and Lord Byron, and they had this storytelling contest. It was a particularly dark summer. It's called The Year Without a Summer because we had a little ice age for a period. It was very strange. Anyway,
similar to The Year Without a Santa Claus. Very similar.
Very similar, but less sad. Because The Year Without a Santa Claus. Sure. Anyway, so John Polidori wrote The Vampire, which is about an aristocratic type of vampire, very charming, etc. Interesting, though, Ben, the first American vampire and first black vampire
What?
both came out that same exact year, 1819.
Holy moly, what?
Yeah. A book called The Black Vampire, A Legend of St. Domingo, which was written by a guy named Richard Varick Day.
Okay.
It was written in 1819 as a response to Polidori's The Vampire, so a few months later. It is interesting for not only being the first American vampire and having the first black vampire, but also perhaps the first American story to advocate for the emancipation of slaves.
Whoa, this thing was real progressive.
Yeah, so vampires have been a part of political ideologies from the beginning. Like this idea of this anti-religious character, this high society character who's in fact preying upon the high society, and then of course this slave character who is using powers that the white man doesn't have. So like it's all about subverting certain things from the beginning.
That's bold.
So then it all makes sense that the first lesbian vampire would come out later in the 19th century. Sheridan Le Fanu's Carmilla, which was a serialized thing that came out from 1871 to 1872, has a lesbian vampire.
What? In the 1800s?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was... people have a very strange misconception that that morality is progressing. We're actually regressing. We're starting to become more and more of this like pearl clutching, overly moral society. Even though we're becoming more accepting on one side, the other side is becoming more and more repressed. So
yeah,
this period, that type of thing would have been, body. It would have been a type of thing that definitely would have been titillating, but that's why it was popular.
Yeah, totally.
Because it was titillating. Yeah.
Some reading material for the boudoir.
I skipped over Varney the vampire, which is Varney is the strangest name for a vampire ever. It is Varney the vampire is very important in understanding that Dracula wasn't the first, but it's also not great. But it did introduce the idea of fangs to the vampire. So first fanged vampire and the first vampire with hypnotic powers.
Ooh, that could like glamour you and shit, huh?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I just think that Varney the Vampire sounds like the Ernest movie that we never got to get.
Yes, exactly. Ernest gets bitten by Dracula. Yeah.
I want that. Yeah, I want that.
Yeah, me too. So this one is a bit of a mind blower, Ben.
Okay.
As I said, all the things that I've said up to this point have been before Bram Stoker's novel Dracula.
Jeez, man. Like, I really did think that was kind of the originator, the OG, that was kind of the wellspring of material.
Yeah, it's kind of how it's presented, but, I mean, it makes sense because it sold so extremely well. Like, it was the big one. Like, there were big ones before it, but nothing as big as it. So, it makes sense that it gets a lot of the credit.
I would say this is really similar to how Chick-fil-A didn't invent the chicken, but the chicken sandwich they can claim. It's very similar to this.
They also didn't invent hating gay people.
That's nothing new.
They didn't invent it. But they did invent the hating gay people sandwich.
But they did put a lot of money into it.
Yeah.
Chicken sandwiches, vampires.
This one is pretty wild. The first vampire in film, Ben. The House of the Devil, directed by Georges Méliès, 1896, a year before Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Now,
in my head, Bram Stoker's Dracula was so much before, like, the film era in my head. I don't know why.
I would say that a lot of it has to do with the fact that most people haven't read the novel. The novel uses advanced tech. I mean, it uses the way it's portrayed in film, they always cut that. They cut any concept of advanced tech being used. Like a blood transfusion was advanced tech. Sure. And they do it throughout the novel. But Yeah, I think it's because the way it's portrayed. Like, you look at the 1932 Dracula, it's like a stage play. It doesn't, it gives you the sense that you're in this like ancient time rather than just, 1932, 40 years after the novel, basically. It's ridiculous.
That's crazy.
People, I don't know though, like media kind of reinvents the way we see history. And that can be a very negative thing, especially during the time of the Hollywood production code.
Yeah.
I did have a couple more. These are after. The House of the Devil, though. That is debatable. It's debatable because, so there are two camps on this. Because vampires, pre the word vampire, vampires were demons that sucked blood. And it was all the same stuff. It just didn't have the word vampire applied to it.
Sure, yeah. It didn't have the branding. It's all about branding these days.
Yeah, it is. So in the House of the Devil, when it is a devil character, but the devil character changes into a bat. So like there's like vampire characteristics applied to the devil, which are like traditionally that works, but it's also not associated with the vampire lore that we normally know. So it's a little debatable. So the actual like first vampire, like definitive first vampire was in fact a female vampire. In the movie The Vampire by Robert Vignola, which came out in 1913.
Wow.
So vampires have always been on the fringe and like dealing with cultural topics on the forefront, and even as we said with Bram Stoker's Dracula, dealing with tech on the forefront and stuff. And we've kind of like reined them back and made them these like Victorian characters.
Yeah.
With widow's peaks that go, I want to suck your blood and all that stuff. Blah. Yeah. So they've changed a lot since Bram Stoker's Dracula.
And that's an interesting thing about this that I think is one of those deals that as science and technology advances and as we are able to, extend our life expectancy longer than it ever has been in history, and that's only getting started. I mean, one day we're going to find the oldness gene and clip it out and be functionally immortal, or take DNA from jellyfish or whatever and be able to continue living way beyond our usual life expectation. I think it's interesting to see the way that culturally we have evolved vampires from being these creatures that would, kill your village and destroy your livestock and suck their blood so they could continue living or whatever. And like nowadays, everything is getting a lot more, I think, existential in a lot of ways that makes you go like, wouldn't it be sad and pointless to be immortal? Just to watch everything that and everyone you love that isn't a vampire die. Like, we're getting a lot more sad vampires now. I think it's interesting to see how that role has kind of changed through history a little bit.
It's kind of baked in there, but yeah, it has become more of like, the looking at how sad it would be to not be able to maintain regular relationships and watching everyone in your life die as you continue to stay the same age. And yeah, that is really our focus now.
Yeah.
This movie has some of that for sure. I think it's dealing less with those existential questions than others, though. I think this is more presenting a vampire as anti-hero than trying to really understand the vampire's loneliness. I mean, it gives us her. Yeah. She is lonely as hell. Like, she's shown us that, and she is like taken on this like vigilante role. But yeah, when she does get some sort of connection, yeah, she takes it immediately, which is, indicating to us just how lonely she was and how excited she is to have any sort of connection in her life.
Yeah, this isn't, for example, what's it called? Last Lovers Left Alive, like Jim Jarmusch movie.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen it.
That's like the set. Oh, you haven't?
No.
Oh shit, we should totally do that. It's a really interesting flick. I recall thinking it was like kind of dull, but I did like it okay.
Okay.
But it's like very much the saddest vampire movie. There's some very emo vamps in that thing. I don't think that they explore fully enough in any vampire story, though, how the saddest part about a vampire's existence would be no eating food with garlic. Come on, it's the flavor of food.
I think that they do explore that a little bit in this movie because she doesn't get to eat that sweet plum or the hamburger, and she seems a little bit disappointed by it.
I mean, I know I would be. If I never got to taste the flavor of garlic again, I'd be a sad, sad Uncle Ben, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I mean, like, what food do you eat without adding garlic to it? I guess like desserts, right?
Nah, even those.
Even those. Okay, yeah, just like a chocolate cake with some garlic. That sounds great.
I wake up in the morning, I have a bowl of Cheerios. I get the old garlic press out there, just crush a clove into my Cheerios. Gets my day started just right. Put some in my coffee. Come on. Talk about like a candle smell that Yankee Candle has not captured yet.
They probably think it would be gross. Like, well, who would want to smell onions? Everybody.
Yeah, fucking everybody. Do you like food? I want a pho candle, dude. I just want pho.
That would be awesome.
And gasoline. I want the smell of gasoline in a candle. Yeah, mixed together. Yeah, makes sense.
That would really unnerve a lot of people, I think, if they were like, they smell gasoline and you have a lit candle on the table.
I think I need to leave here. This seems very unsafe. You know what, Steve?
What's that?
It's the Thanksgiving season, and around this time of year, every single year, I just get the urge to shine up the old giblets, if you know what I mean. I'm talking about cleaning up my downstairs. You know, before we know it, the Christmas season is going to be upon us, and I'll tell you what, I just can't wait to unwrap my package.
Thankfully for us, there's all kinds of Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals from Manscaped.
It's a holiday miracle.
Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels.
Oh my lord, we're bringing technology to the sack.
Ben, I know you are a manscaper yourself. I am as well. And Ben, I have had in the past some atrocious occurrences
Lord of mercy,
using a trimmer on my downstairs area. In fact, I've had some bloody experiences.
Oh, Lord of mercy. Nobody wants no part of that.
No, you don't. And I know some of you out there thinking, it's a crazy old time. I don't even get out ever. Why do I need to manscape? Let me tell you this. When you look good, you feel good. And when your boys look good, boy, do they feel good. I'll tell you that.
You're doggone right. You're doggone right, Steve. Just because you're in quarantine don't mean you don't need to be clean, y'all. But, Steve, let me let you in on a little secret here, because I know we got a lot of listeners on the show here that are saying, but, Ben, but, Steve, I ain't got no balls of my own. I don't need this manscaping. Let me tell you what, ladies, this can be for you, too, because I'm going to tell you what, you can get this thing and take advantage of using that up before somebody creates Womanscaped and starts charging you 3 times as much for the same stuff. Y'all know how this works.
Listen to me, Dead and Lovelies. Manscaped is forever changing the grooming game with their Perfect Package 3.0. What's in there? You get the Lawnmower 3.0 for lawn mowing your nards area. It's skin safe. I used it. No tugs, no nicks. I enjoyed it. You can even create a little less mess by using that thing in the shower or getting one of those Magic Mat disposable shaving mats they got. Catch all that hair as it drops. And let's not forget about the Crop Preserver anti-chafing ball deodorant. Do what? And moisturizer. This is amazing. You're putting deodorant on your armpits. Get some deodorant for your balls. What else are you going to get in that Perfect Package 3.0? Some anti-chafing performance boxer briefs. I don't know how they've done it. It's time to get this Perfect Package 3.0. Get clean like Mean Gene's bald head. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code DEAD20. That's DEAD20 at manscaped.com.
So this holiday season, be sure to trim the tree and trim up your balls with Manscaped.
Your balls will thank you.
And so will the people that love your balls.
So let's talk about this girl that walks home alone at night and what she's all about.
What's her big idea? What's she going to go do now? Is she going to get a job, drive a car, vote, walk home alone by herself at night? What are these ladies thinking of these days? What's the deal with these Iranian vampires?
So this is, as I said, the first Farsi language and first Middle Eastern set vampire movie. It's directed by Anna Lily Amarpour. She's directed a few other things. Definitely got a cliffhanger reboot that she announced recently. That's, I think, supposed to come out maybe 2022. Not positive.
Of the movie Cliffhanger, with Stallone.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. I don't know where it's gonna go.
What a plot twist this is.
I know. I'm interested. Anyway, so
what the fuck?
She was born in England and then grew up in America. Grew up in California, and she just grew up making movies. Her dad got a camcorder when she was like 12, and she would do recreations of commercials. This is a pretty common thing I've heard from a lot of creative people who end up making movies. Is like, as kids, they would just recreate stuff they saw on TV.
So, I get it, man. I mean, it's like my start with art and stuff like that was just like redrawing pictures I saw in comics and shit like that. It's like the first step of innovate is imitate.
Yep. Yeah. So that's kind of how she got started, and then she made a short for A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, and then did an Indiegogo campaign that got like $56,000. I'm not sure what the entire final budget was. I'm sure family and friends probably helped out along the way, but it's very low budget. Ended up making less than $1 million at box office, but that wasn't really the point. The point was getting it on a streaming service, and it's obviously succeeded in that.
Yeah, it's got a huge kind of underground following now.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that really, really, really dig this movie. I put out a post earlier today on my Instagriddle asking people what they thought of this flick, and it's pretty much exclusively like 9 out of 10 people being like, this movie's fucking awesome, and then maybe one person that's like, I've never heard of this.
yeah, it is. It's got a name for it, and it's one that, I saw a long time ago and was like, yeah, okay, great. And
I get it, yeah.
Watching it back to just sort of review it, I was thinking, maybe you'll see some real flaws with it because it's so low budget. And that is not the case. Rewatching it, I was like, okay, this is solid.
No kidding. Yeah. It never feels like a cheap movie. Like, that's one of the things about this that I think is really impressive, because especially in the world of horror, which whether this is horror or not, we'll kind of get into. I think this movie is like a big mishmash of a lot of influences, but a horror movie that just feels cheap, where you're like, oh, they didn't have any money when they made this, sometimes can be very charming, and other times can just really take you out of it and make it not fun at all to watch.
Yeah.
This movie kind of sidesteps all of that stuff, where it's like you're watching it and you never really once think about, what did this cost to make?
Right.
It just kind of is its own thing. I think sometimes black and white really aids that. This entire movie is this beautiful high contrast black and white. Yeah. And I think sometimes just that instantly makes something so stylized that you can kind of get away with stuff. We sort of talked about that when we were talking about Tetsuo the Iron Man a couple weeks ago during the intro of the show, where it's like,
if that were in color, it would look
like shit.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd probably look really stupid. But the fact that, similar to this, it's in this very high contrast black and white, kind of hides a lot of the budgetary restraints that they had. So I don't know if that was like a budgetary choice to do it black and white, or if it was a stylistic choice. Do you know anything about why they did this movie that way instead of in color?
It was a stylistic choice, but I imagine there were budgetary concerns that made it the better choice for sure. She was going for a Nosferatu type of feel, and also like a graphic novel type of feel, specifically black and white graphic novels that so she was going
like
for
a Sin City.
Yeah, exactly, like Sin City. So she was, she even named the city Bad City. It's very similar to Sin City.
Kind of on the nose, yeah.
Yeah. She was going for that particular aesthetic, and of course it plays into the low budget, but I can't see this in color. I mean, not that it would necessarily look bad in color. I think it has to be in black and white, because it is really dealing with specifically moral areas and what is good, what is bad, what's morally gray. Like,
That's true.
Our two main characters, Aresh and the girl is
the
all she's
girl.
called. Yeah, our two main characters they are not good, but they're not bad. They're good people in bad situation.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that seems to be the way. It seems like that's a pretty rough kind of area that they're in, where it's just like, well, these are the choices they made because that's kind of the only choices they had.
Yeah. So they're shown as our protagonists, and they're anti-heroes, like, for sure. I mean, you look at Aresh, he just starts out as this kid who worked hard for his car, and then by the middle of the thing, he's a drug dealer. But we're still rooting for him. Like, he's still our guy. We're not mad at him because Saeed, the first drug dealer, he's an asshole. We're mad at him for being an asshole, not for dealing drugs.
And the shitty tattoos.
Oh man. Yeah, the tattoo that says pimp in this is in Farsi. So yeah, it's dealing a lot in moral gray areas, and so the choice for black and white helps, to deal with that. It helps to give us the sharp contrasts and the grays and the and helps to lead us down that path, whereas color wouldn't do that.
How like life this is. We are calling it black and white, but of course, what is the most prevalent color on the screen? It is gray. It is not black and white. This is a gray movie. How like life this is.
This makes me want to drive to Montreal.
I need a ship of champagne. I don't know what accent that was. That really.
I need a ship of champagne, don't I?
I don't know what that was. Never mind. Moving on. But yeah, I think it works really well for this movie too, because it totally has that kind of film noir vibe in a lot of ways, where it is this just like very existential, lonesome character study kind of movie about a couple of crazy kids mixed up in a world. This movie needs some Jimmy Stewart in it.
It sure does. It would be funny. It would be funny if, like, Hossein, his dad, talked like Jimmy Stewart, but in Farsi.
But in Farsi. Yeah. I'd be on board with that right there. Be okay.
Yeah, so, we got our other characters. We have, as I said, Saeed, the pimp, who is a bad guy. We got Hossein, who is a drug addict, who, it doesn't seem terrible. He just seems to be a drug addict until he injects Ati, who is a sex worker, who is probably the most sympathetic character of all of them.
Yeah, she seems like she has a rough life.
Yeah, she seems like she has a rough life. She is not trying to do anything bad to anyone. Whereas everyone else does bad things, she never does anything bad. And it seems like...
That's true. Yeah, she's kind of the only one that doesn't make some kind of shady, weird choice. Huh?
Right. It seems like the girl, primarily throughout, is protecting her. She attacks people who do bad things to Ati. So I think that she's probably the purest character in Bad City. Everyone else is on a different scale of the gray scale. Like, everyone else is much closer to evil than good, probably.
Yeah, it definitely seems that way. Bad City, of course, is a fictional place.
Yeah.
Does it ever say that this is supposed to be in Iran? Okay,
it's supposed to be in Iran, but it's shot in California.
Right, because like I was really unsure a lot of times watching this. I'm like, is this in Iran? Is this modern times? Like, when and where is this movie?
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure.
There's a cell phone, so we know it's somewhat modern times.
Yeah, but then like our main hunk in here like dresses like a greaser and drives like a 1950s car.
Yeah. That's. I mean, I think some of that is her Amirpour's like base in American movies. She's when she first moved to America, that was like the way she connected with American culture was through movies, and I think he's like a James Dean type of character. We're supposed we're supposed to see him as like this sympathetic character who's, he's rough around the edges, but he's also very sweet, good guy. But yeah, I think I think so much of it is stylized that it is hard to get a idea of time and place for sure.
Which I think is really cool. Like, I'm very
me
okay
too.
with that, because ultimately when you're dealing with a story about a vampire,
Right.
timelessness is kind of all that there is. It's like, well, what era is it? It doesn't matter if you're immortal.
Right. So I
think that kind of ties in nicely to the whole kind of feel of the flick.
Yeah, and she specifically chose everything, basically. Like she wanted the characters to look very specific ways. So it's very much her vision on a budget. So
yeah, she apparently planned everything to like down to the wire, where it's like even during this scene, this is the song that's going to be played. Like,
right.
She was very, very specific in the making of this entire movie. So anytime that there's something going on, it is very much a deliberate move on her part in the way that she wrote this, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, me too. And you know, seeing the final product and seeing like, I mean, honestly, like there are some things maybe I'd change or whatever, but predominantly it's just like, no, this is an obviously like very competent, good work that somebody really slaved over and made their own and made it something that people would talk about 5 years later, 10 years later.
Let's give them something to talk about.
Yeah.
A little Iranian vampire to figure out. Those the original lyrics.
Yeah. I think the cast does a lot for that. I mean, other than, you know, her vision really coming through, there's a cast here of really solid actors, and you may not immediately recognize them, but these people are in a lot of stuff. Sheila Vand, who plays the girl, was in Argo. She's
okay.
She was also in XX, which we covered a couple of years ago, the birthday party segment, which was where that woman gave birth to a full-grown demon.
Yep.
She's also in the Snowpiercer TV show. She's in The Rental, which is Dave Franco's horror movie that came out earlier this year. She's in a good bit of stuff.
Wow.
Also, the guy who plays Hussein, Marshall Maresh, he's in True Lies. He was in The Big Lebowski,
shit.
Pirates of the Caribbean, At World's End. He's got like 100 credits. The guy's in so much shit.
Dude, like, I thought that he looked familiar, but I was like, it can't be. I don't know anything this guy's been in. I guess I know, like, a lot of things he's been in.
Yeah, he just doesn't normally play a heroin addict. That's probably why he looked a little bit different.
Who does, anyway?
Yeah, that's a good point. Saeed, Dominic Raines, he's in Winter Soldier. He was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He's in Chicago Med. The guy's in tons of stuff. But again,
like big budget shit.
Right, and again, doesn't have a huge tattoo on the side of his head, so maybe a little less recognizable. And then Ati Mojan Marno, she's in House of Cards, Blacklist, and most important, Ben, she is a voice of two characters in Skyrim. Mirabelle Irvine, we all know her, Master Wizard of the College of Winterhold.
Yeah, I mean, geez, who doesn't? Am I right? I mean,
and
obviously.
The Daedra associated with rot, decay, and cannibalism, Namira.
My favorite one,
right?
In that game. Who plays that game and doesn't love that one? Am I right? Gamers?
You should really play Skyrim.
Man, I had to bust somebody this week, by the way, that started a competitive gaming account page on Facebook with my name and photo and stuff.
Yeah, I saw that. But it was just Beneller, like no space.
Exactly, Beneller. Maybe his name was actually Beanler. He's like, I will call myself Beanler.
It's me, Beanler.
Again, don't know what accent that was. It was just an alien accent.
Yeah, I am from other planets.
And I am called Beanler. You know, the thing about this casting in this movie is it is like 100% Iranian, Persian actors and actresses, which is very uncommon.
Right, yeah.
Nobody out in this movie that isn't of that descent, which I'm going to say is an extremely positive thing, because if I was an actor or actress of Middle Eastern descent in the States looking for work, I would get so fucking mad and discouraged if all that I ever got cast as was bad guy, terrorist, henchman. Like, that's the majority of what you see in American movies.
Or doctor.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yep,
that's
it.
the
Those
other
are your
option
roles.
is doctor. Yeah.
Because the majority of the time in American cinema, that's the roles that they get, and that's got to fucking get old.
Absolutely. So something like this comes along, you could see why you'd want to be a part of it. You get to be a unique, interesting character, telling, a story that, I mean, this isn't heavily associated with Iranian culture. I mean,
That was going to be a question I have. Is this an Iranian movie per se?
Well, that's the thing is I think that would be the interest in being an actor is getting to show Iranian characters as just human beings rather than as caricatures of Islam.
Yeah, because that's the thing. I feel like the majority of the time in American cinema and TV and stuff, whenever we do have people that are Middle Eastern in flicks and stuff, their Middle Easternness seems to define them, and that's kind of all there is to it. And all that it is fucking prayer rugs and their garments and stuff like this. That's all that we really get out of it. And you forget that, like, there's Iranian teenagers that have parties and flirt with boys and girls and do all the same shit
and
that we
drugs
do.
And
Exactly.
The one instance where I think they come close to like insinuating something close to like the rules of an Islamic country is when he talks about how it would be inappropriate for her to be alone with him in the room, but he's really only doing that to steal earrings. Like, he doesn't actually think it's inappropriate. He's just doing it to steal those earrings. Yeah.
Sure.
So it really does show in the same light that you see, like, a movie set in the South. Everybody in it might be Baptist, but we don't have to talk about that.
Sure.
It's not like the feature of the movie. It's just something that is a part of the culture, but there's a whole lot more to it. And that's what this is. This is showing like there's a whole lot more to Iranian culture than religion and dealing with constantly dealing with these rules and things.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good thing that they show us that. The fact that it's in a horror movie too, I think makes it even more unique to kind of explore that level of, let's really probe into this society and see what it's like and see if it's really so much different than what you guys live with here, on this side of the country or on the side of the planet, I mean.
Right, yeah. So it's, you were talking about this when we were talking before we recorded, how the fact that it shows it's filmed in California, but it shows all the same things that you would see in the Middle East is just this reminder that it's not another world.
Like, that's something that I really got out of it. And I mean, it is interesting in that, like you said, the director is not, from Iran or anything like that, but
her family
obviously,
is,
but it's like obviously the decision to make this a movie that is in Farsi and entirely cast by actors and actresses that are Iranian, is like it makes it a choice to show you that this is a little bit of a slice of that culture, even if it is coming to her, secondhand from her family and her parents and her community that she grew up in and stuff like that. Even though she grew up knowing Iranian culture in America, it is still showing us what she knows and exposing us to things that we don't know about. I mean, I'll just straight out say I'm ignorant as fuck about Iranian culture. I don't really know much anything about it. So anything stupid as hell that I say, go on the Facebook or Instagram and correct me because I need to know. I just don't know,
Yeah, I'm the same. I don't know much at all. I do know
I don't know much, but I know I love you.
I do know though that like what we see in the movies are a lot of the same shots we get in the opening, like the shots of say like the oil wells and all that stuff. Like those are the things you see when we're being shown the Middle East. But that is also Southern California and Central California. Like
you drive around the Southwest and you're gonna see stuff that looks like the Middle East. I mean, like Bakersfield, California is the biggest population of Iranians outside of Iran.
Yeah.
And there's things like dry, arid climates and deserts and, like you said, oil wells and all kinds of stuff like this. It's like, how different are we exactly? And I even think that the choice to name the movie A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night is meant to show us the fact that that is an unsettling sentence
everywhere?
in either language.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in either hemisphere of the world. It's like,
Yeah.
if you say that about somebody in America, in California, or whatever, you say a girl walks home alone at night, it's like, oh, something bad's going to happen.
Right.
If you say that same thing about somebody in the Middle East, which we have our own ideas about and stuff like this, it's like, oh, something bad's going to happen. It's like,
Right.
it's a universal kind of truth. It doesn't really matter where you are in the world. And I think this movie, a lot of times, is showing us that things are more similar than you think. It's like, even though we think about, like you said, that side of the world is being very dominated by religion and stuff like this, they have huge drug problems, same as we do here.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Opiates are bad for people, and they're
Yep.
everywhere.
They really are. They are. It's almost like invading Afghanistan had something to do with getting control of the legal heroin operation.
Oh, the poppy
around the
fields
world.
and stuff out there?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if that
I
would
don't
benefit
know.
Big Pharma or anything like that. That
It's
sounds
crazy.
unlikely.
Why would we do that?
I'm not really sure about that. I don't think there's any money to be made there or anything.
No. So anyway, yeah,
But
I think
like
you're
I said,
right,
I think
though.
it's meant to show us that, though, that these cultures that I think that a lot of Americans think of as being so drastically different
Yeah.
aren't really.
Oh yeah, yeah. As someone who lived for 2 years in Russia, aside from the fact that conservatives think it's probably some sort of conservative utopia, which it isn't, it is a place that people think of as scary. And I'll tell you, from living in Russia 2 years and living in LA 2 years, I've been equally scared on the streets of Knoxville late at night. It's you're not any less safe unless you know you are in an active war zone. You're not any less safe in another country. So I
We're just here
think
to
you're
tell
right.
you everything sucks everywhere.
Everything sucks everywhere. Yeah.
But also shows us, too, that there are, in spite of, again, what we think of as being a religious stronghold in the foundation of their society, that doesn't mean that there's not, let's say, transgender people.
Right. Yeah,
You
we
know?
get rockabilly. Well, the thing is, in Iran, he would not be able to do that out in the open. That's, I mean, that is a truth.
Oh, yeah.
Bad City is not a real representation of Iran.
Right.
But
you could say that
there
it means
are
it's
drag
still a
queens in Iran.
representation
Yeah.
that the urges are universal, that
Yep.
the interest in that,
The
don't know what-
only
I don't know
difference
what
is
I'm trying
that
to say.
he wouldn't be able to openly do it. But there are
Yeah.
definitely drag queens in Iran. It's
Yeah,
just
totally.
that they have to be very quiet about it. But
it's everywhere, yeah.
it's everywhere. There's no and I think that's exactly the point. Is it's saying like these human feelings are universal.
That's
they
what I'm
don't
trying to
change
say.
culturally. They don't change religiously. It's just how you have to deal with your culture and your religion as a human. So
Yeah.
you're right. Like a girl walks home alone at night, that's scary everywhere. And then it's awesome that it's also subverted pretty immediately. Like we get the first girl we see walking alone is Ati, and we see Saeed treat her like shit. Sticking his finger in her mouth and shit.
Yeah.
Then the girl basically reverses everything. She stalks him, follows him into his place. He sticks his finger in her mouth. She bites it off.
Which
like,
is awesome.
Yeah, and that is the moment where we see that the title is ironic. It's not like the girl isn't actually unsafe. She's in fact she's the predator.
Yeah. She walks
Yeah.
home alone at night because it's safe for her to do it that way.
She doesn't have
She'll
to worry
destroy
about
anything.
it. Yeah, yeah. I love that. That's it was because I didn't know what to expect the first time I watched it. Whenever like he sticks his finger in her mouth, I was like, oh, like because I knew it was a vampire movie. I was like, where is this going to go? Is he a vampire? And like, but then it turns out it's her, and she's the scary one. But then we like almost immediately after that get her just like dancing in her apartment by herself. So like it's just this, we're reintroduced to her in a real interesting way. Like we find out that she's this scary monster thing, but also she's lonely.
Yeah.
And you buy into it pretty quickly. Like I never, as you said, like calling it a horror film, is hard because, like, yeah, it has a vampire in it, but it's not meant to be scary, I don't think. Like,
Yeah, it's not
her
necessarily
being,
that much of a horror movie.
right, yeah. It's much more of a Western, much more of a quirky rom-com almost, like, far less of a horror movie. It does have a very sort of downbeat ending, but also I can see some hope in it, I would say. Like, you know, the basic ending is that the girl ends up killing Hossein, who is Aresh's dad, but Aresh, we find out, like, early in the movie, the dad says something like, "You'd be better off if I just died," and Aresh doesn't say no.
Yeah.
And then later, he figures out that she killed Hossein. He gets out of the car, has a little moment, and then seems fine with it. Like, he seems to accept it. Like, yeah, okay, that's fine. I don't mind that she killed my junkie dad because he was holding me back. Like, again, as I said, these are our protagonists, but they're gray area characters. They're not ultimately great.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't care that his
interesting.
junkie dad died.
Exactly. And that's the thing that's interesting, too, is, like, you know, his dad had been dealing with heroin addiction, which, of course, is a massively life-stealing substance, and then he was killed by another life-stealing entity.
Right.
And I'm sure at the end of the day, he was just kind of like, well, something was going to get him.
Yeah.
What difference does it make?
Yeah, it does seem like he just kind of is like, well, okay. And I love her, and I really don't mind. He was kind of holding me down, and she got rid of it. So it's a cool little, like, conclusion to come to, that basically, like, all of these things are kind of vampiric. Like, the fact that the Saeed is a pimp. A pimp is essentially a money vampire. Like,
okay, yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of these, like, vampiric things going on, the way everything else is sucking life out of them in Bad City.
Yeah.
That leaving it is a way of regaining life. I also saw the ending, though, as kind of a almost prequel to Let the Right One In. Like,
It
now,
had a very Let the Right One In vibe to me, yeah.
Yeah. Now, what is his life like with a vampire? Like, basically, he brings her victims, I would assume, right? Like, it's...
I would guess, yeah.
Yeah. So, it's a real conflicted ending. I mean, the whole movie's conflicted, and that goes into, as I said, it is like a... I mean, Amirpour says that it's like a psychedelic vampire western is what she was going for. And I see the Western to it. Because Westerns...
Explain to me about the Western thing, because I didn't really get how a lot of people were drawing that comparison, but I'm by no means any kind of expert on Westerns.
That's what I was going to say. I remember when we covered Bone Time, like you said, you weren't big on Westerns. And this is something that I think people who aren't big on Westerns don't know about Westerns, is that Westerns aren't the good guy saves the day and the bad guy gets his comeuppance, mostly. They're predominantly very gray areas about former outlaws who've tried to turn their life around, who now have to get involved in these dark situations, with drugs and prostitution being heavy hitters throughout the Western genre. Because
when you put it that way, this kind of sounds like a Western.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, she basically plays a black hat old cowboy who comes into town and cleans up a little bit. Like, she's the anti-hero good guy who's killed a few in the past and maybe doesn't kill only bad people, but mostly kills bad people.
And then at the end gets to leave town with lover in tow.
Yeah, and you know, they're leaving with some stolen goods as well. Like, they're hightailing it out of town.
The bounty.
Yeah, they're basically they've killed all these other criminals, but they are criminals themselves, which is, I mean, very much in the Western genre, that your protagonists don't, usually end up being good people until you start looking at westerns in the 1940s and 50s where they were really just going for white people killing other people dressed in brownface. Like,
not the best message.
Yeah, not much of a message at all, except I'm a man and I'm taking this land. Yeah.
Now let me ask you another thing here about this movie, because one of our favorite things whenever we cover vampire films, as we have for years and years and years now, we typically do No Vampire, where we talk vampire flicks and stuff in the month of November. We always love talking about the vampire rules that everybody puts in their flicks, because these vary greatly from they do. Movie to movie, from lore to lore, and this movie is, I think, pretty light on spelling out exactly what the rules of this vampire are. It seems like she has the quick, stealthy movement where it's like, I just turned around, now you're right behind me again, and that kind of thing. She can move very quickly and deftly. She has fangs that are retractable, obviously. We never see her in the daytime, but we never see her skin to get burnt or anything like that.
Right.
She has a repulsion to food. She can't eat no food.
Can't eat food.
What else we got going on here that
I think that's basically all we get of her vampirism. I mean, they don't ever use the word vampire. Dracula is said in jest because he's dressed as Dracula. But yeah, they don't say the word vampire, and there's no aversion to silver, garlic, crosses, any religious iconography or any of that sort. It really is pretty basic. Just the fangs. Can't eat human food. Seems to have to eat daily. Seems, but I don't know. I don't know how long of a period of time this is, because he does go from, kid wanting his car back to drug dealer, but he still has that cast on. So I'm assuming it's within like a pretty short period of time, and we see her kill like 5 people, I think, within that time. So she has to eat pretty regularly. But yeah, there's no other real rules applied, I don't think. So no flying. I didn't see that. Though maybe that's how she moves so stealthily.
We didn't see her transform into any other animals, but it does seem like she sees through the eyes of the cat.
She does seem to see through the eyes of the cat.
Control of the beast is, of course, a popular vampire trait. So I assume she's got a little bit of that in her.
Yeah, she definitely, because she sees Hussein inject Ati with the heroin through the cat, and then comes in and kills him. So that does seem to be another, and that's actually one that it doesn't get used a lot, though it is something that Dracula in the novel Dracula was like, he actually says it in Bram Stoker's Dracula, what beautiful music they make or whatever, because he can understand the creatures of the night.
I think if you were gonna be a vampire playing by traditional vampire rules, I think the Middle East is kind of a mixed bag of results, because if you're over there, you're a vampire, you're in Iran.
Yeah.
Okay, you get a little instant safety because not a lot of crosses hanging around.
Yeah,
all right.
Good point.
Not a lot of crucifixes. It's kind of a good thing. Bad news: garlic everywhere.
Yeah,
just everywhere.
So much garlic.
So much garlic all over that place. You're probably weak as fuck all the time.
This is making me hungry now.
Dude, I had Yassine's Falafel House for lunch, so
that's
exactly
what I was thinking
of.
I was like, I want some of that falafel.
Oh my gosh, so good.
Yeah, so that would be tough. And also during the summer, like, gosh, you'd have just such a short period of time to hunt.
You know what, though? Maybe with you being a dead, cold-blooded person, maybe it's like being a lizard, where you're like, I like it warm. It's too cold in here.
Maybe so. He does
I need to get warm.
He does say she's cold, so maybe that is part of it. Like, she's like, I'm freezing. I'll go to the desert. No way it'll get cold out there.
But we never really know anything about her origin or her age or anything like that. Like, it is all...
it never gets into any of that history.
Extremely vague in terms of that. Like, the only real clue that we're given is the cloak-like cape that she wears that is traditional Iranian garb. Is it the chador? What's it called?
Chador? A chador?
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Like, that apparently is something that is more worn by, like, let's say the boomer generation. It's more of an old school piece of traditional clothing. So maybe that's an indicator of that character's garb. But then again, it's like we said, it's like you got dude in here that looks like he's straight out of S.E. Hinton's The Outsiders, looking like a greaser and stuff. So it's like,
well, maybe
really, does decade of clothing matter?
Well, maybe that's why she's attracted to him. Maybe she's from that decade.
Ooh, I like that.
He's sort of reflecting that. I think
Could
the
be.
use of the chatter has to do maybe an association with the cape of the superhero.
I did see an interview with the director there where she said just one day there was one on the set of something she was working on. She put it on and she was like, "Man, I feel like a stingray or a bat." Instantly
that's
just
cool.
putting this thing on because I mean it's a black cape. It kind of looks like Dracula. It's got a hood. It's almost like Batman.
Yeah, and think about when the last time you saw someone wearing a cape was. It's not very common.
No,
It's an old piece of garb that
pretty old school.
Yeah. So I think that's a good like transition choice. Like, but also as I said, a reference to superheroes because I think she plays sort of a Batman type vigilante superhero character because she goes around hurting the bad people, telling little kids they have to be good, and being nice to people who have it rough. So basically, she's like this superhero for Bad City. And
Or Santa
that's
Claus.
Or Santa Claus. I also like the skateboard bit. I like that.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, because it does give the illusion of flying. In fact, by the way, that is Anna Lily Amirpour in some of the scenes skateboarding because she's been a skateboarder her whole life.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is cool. But
that's an iconic part of this movie, though. Those scenes on the board, like you said, are really sick, and it does give you that illusion of that, you know, like in Bram Stoker's Dracula, like Gary Oldman just kind of glides around. Yeah. It gives you that look, but like in a practical way.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that a lot. And then it serves a practical purpose in the story. And that's something I like wanted to point out about this movie is that the script is very solid. There's not a lot of extraneous anything. Everything's really tight.
Subplots, really.
Yeah. I mean, to say that, anybody watching this movie would say it's not tight. It probably could be tightened up. But the script itself, the way the story is written, very tight, very well done.
Yeah.
And each of the characters stand out. Each of the characters pretty quickly establish who they are. I mean, we hate Saeed almost immediately. It's just like, just from the look of him, you're just like, oh, this guy's an asshole. And then he proves to be an asshole. So, like, it's really well written. The characters are really well done. And then, like, as we said, like, the way she chose to dress them and like, to use music in certain scenes, like, that all adds to it. Like, she definitely brought so much to an already strong script to make this just much more than a vampire story, but still a really solid vampire story.
Yeah, I think so. And kind of going off of what you were just saying there, right after watching the movie, I, like a lot of people, I'm sure, that reviewed this flick were like, well, it was kind of slow. Like the pacing was pretty low key. It's a pretty slow burn movie. But now that you mention it, now that you mention it, I think back on it and I'm like, there weren't really any scenes that didn't matter though.
Right. They're just
a lot
little
of them
too
were kind of longer.
Maybe.
Yeah, like they were all like a bit longer than probably they should have been, but every scene in the movie, every beat of the flick serves a purpose. It's also these characters can meet, so these characters can know this thing about each other, so this person can die. Like there is always a reason behind everything. So it's like, yeah, it is kind of slow. It could probably be tightened up a little bit in terms of the pacing, I think, but there's no wasted time in it at the same time.
No, not at all. Yeah,
especially when it looks this goddamn good. Fuck, this movie is gorgeous.
Oh. Man, yeah, I mean, that's the thing is that some of those shots, I understand somebody could be like, it's a little too long, but it's just so beautiful. It's like, yeah, you get why editing it, you don't want to take any of those frames out, because, like, specifically,
I'm photographs, thinking,
specifically, I'm thinking of the sort of final shot, which is of the, of Arash and the girl and the cat, in the cab of, or in the front seat of his car.
It goes
It's
forever.
a very long shot. I rewatching it, I was like, that cat is so magnetic in this shot. I
What
know
the hell?
that
I know.
it's like not the point at all of this shot, but the cat is just like, how is that cat so charming?
I don't know. It's the weirdest thing. That cat knows something.
It does. It does. And that's why it was such a great choice to add like that, because like apparently she didn't have the cat originally in the script, but like came across this cat and was just like enamored with it. So like
That's what I don't get though. She says that was not originally part of the script, but like how was it that he was originally supposed to figure out that his dad had been killed by the girl?
I wonder if maybe the little boy was supposed to tell him.
Yeah.
Maybe,
Okay.
or maybe he was supposed to get it, like maybe a piece of jewelry or something.
Yeah, maybe she has like
Something like that.
his ring or whatever, yeah.
But then the cat, the cat just does a good job of like connecting the tissue in a better way than any object would have done, because it is, as I said, I mean, it could have been, a bad cat actor, and it would have been like, why did they put that cat in there? But this cat is just, I get particularly meeting this cat and being like, this cat should be filmed.
That cat has charisma.
Yeah.
No doubt. Did
Yeah.
you feel like the pacing of the movie was right, or did you feel like it was a little bit long?
I think
in some scenes
it's a little slow, a little
Okay.
long.
Yeah.
It's
what, an
especially-
hour 40, right?
Yeah. It's not too long of a movie, honestly.
Could have been an hour 30, I'll say.
But it could have been cut. And I think specifically, like, this is one where it's real rare, but because I have ADD, I tend to watch the movie several times, specifically because I know I'm going to miss stuff. And with a movie with subtitles, it becomes specifically hard because, like, you can't look away. Like, because you can't just, like, hear and be like, yeah, I get what's going on, because I don't speak Farsi. And so, especially because the stuff would be particularly long between anybody saying anything, and then some shots would be really static, I kept finding myself zoning out and, like, losing myself and not paying attention. So, like,
yeah, I get it.
But that's a real specific, like, that's a quibble that's only for people with ADD. Otherwise, I think, maybe things could be tightened up to just make it a tighter feeling movie. But each of those shots is really gorgeous. So I get why they kept a lot of that stuff, but it maybe not necessary.
I get it, man. But I will tell you one thing, man. Like, part of what did always keep me engaged in the movie and bring my attention back was the use of soundtrack in this movie, which is like,
man,
it's damn near like Tarantino level.
Yeah,
like, the use of
it's great.
soundtrack in this movie is really good because it's got
Yes.
that thing that Tarantino movies have where it's not subtle at all.
No.
Like,
No,
the
no.
music will be loud as fuck in the scene, and that's the
Yeah.
point, and that is where the attention is supposed to go. And it's really easy to do that and for it to be obnoxious as shit. See Suicide Squad.
Yeah,
But when it's done right, when it's just like this weird offbeat, like, I never would have chosen that music for this, but this is so cool.
yeah.
It really adds so much to a flick. And I do think this movie does that extremely fucking well. And it does
Yeah.
it without using, like, songs Like, there's
Well,
not a damn, White Stripes song in here. There's not a Rolling Stones song in here. It's all stuff that you've probably never heard.
But it is not overly unique Middle Eastern music. What she did is bring some stuff she grew up with and knew to an audience that, in a way that they could receive it. Like, a lot of times Middle Eastern music is used in movies to indicate evil or to indicate
very true.
something bad is coming. And what she was presenting us with is just like, no, it's like music. Like, how music is?
It's like
that's
that.
what it is, yeah.
But again, there's that
and
cultural
makes it
sameness
play.
that I'm talking about too,
Yeah.
where it just shows you it's like, yeah, even though you don't even know these songs, they're still gonna like really grab you by the
Yeah.
ears the same way it does whenever Tarantino uses "Stuck in the Middle with You" and
Exactly.
Reservoir Dogs. Even though you
Exactly.
don't even know this song and it's from a different culture and you don't know the lyrics, it can still have the same effect on you.
Yeah, and the soundtrack is just like, I watched it the first time with headphones on. Sometimes it is like there's so much going on that you're just not hearing. It's like so deep. Like, a couple of times I really thought there was a large truck outside of my window. Like it felt like the vibrations and stuff was just like so heavy.
Wow.
And I think some of that has to do with the fact that she has 30% hearing loss. And so like the music isn't just music, but it's about the feel of the music as well. So like the specific use of like heavy bass music at times, I found like had more of an actual tactile element to it than just hearing. Like so very interesting to me. Yeah. I wouldn't have thought of that until I read that she had hearing loss, and then I realized like, oh, she must have been like, because like I know that is a thing with a lot of people with hearing loss, or even people who were born deaf, that like the vibrations of deep bass are still perceptible because
you feel them. Yeah.
You feel them. Yeah. So I wonder if that is intentional, that the soundtrack has a lot of those sort of tactile moments.
Yeah, it could be. Very well could be, man. One thing about this flick that I thought maybe could have used some amping up, especially in terms of like, slow burn, really kind of quiet, moody movies like this.
Yeah.
Sometimes if they have bits of shocking gore and violence, it can come across as even more shocking and violent and really make you straighten up in your seat over long periods of time. I thought this movie was a little bit light on those elements. I think that it could have gone a little bit harder with some of those moments, especially like, in that extreme contrast, black and white that this is, like seeing all that black blood spraying over walls and stuff like this. Like, I think if it would have gone a little bit harder in the gore, I would have been very okay with that. I know that that's not the point of this movie. Like, it's a character study movie. It's not a horror movie, but I think that it could have served to add moments of extreme uncomfortability and stuff to this movie.
Yeah, I think like the finger bite scene and the scene where she tells the little boy to be good, and then the scene where she bursts into Ati's apartment after Hossein has injected her. I think those are the three like big intense moments, and you're right, like they're not heavy on any sort of gore. I think the one big thing we get from those scenes is how powerful she is, but without the reminder of all of our impending doom. Like that is what gore is, right? Like it's like a reminder, like we're all just made out of meat and stuff, and we don't get that in this. And that could have been stronger. Like when she bites off the finger, if there had been a bit more blood, like there's just a little bit of blood around her mouth when she comes out, and she's like leaving. And that it seems like there'd be a lot more.
I think so. And I think that would have been okay. I think it would have been cool to show that kind of extreme violence in this setting. And I mean, especially with her, she's so beautiful.
Yeah, she's really
it would have been awesome to have that contrast of her doing extremely brutal, violent things and being fucking covered in blood and stuff. I would have been okay with that personally. But, again, I'm sure if we talked to the director, she'd be like, yeah, that really wasn't what this is about, dude.
Yeah. Or, I mean, even at a base level, it could just be a budgetary concern. I mean, not that fake blood is expensive, but getting someone who knows what they're doing with it costs some money. So
yeah. Well, plus you're talking about action beats and stuff to film.
Yeah.
The bloodletting and stuff like that, too. So it could have racked up some budget pretty fast, I think.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, I'd say some of that is budgetary and some of it is also just like, as you said, this is much more of a character study than about blood. And also, again, from its two major influences, Nosferatu and Westerns, those aren't bloody movies. Like, people get shot in Westerns, they just grab their side and fall over,
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
On the subject of blood, that's something I was going to ask you about, too, because as I was watching this the other night, I did happen to notice a little bit of a pattern that ran through most of her victims in this. There's one that's a little bit ambiguous, but did you notice how she tends to drink the blood of people who have just done drugs?
Oh.
Like the pimp at the first of the movie has just done like all of the cocaine,
the coke,
all that blow. She kills him, drinks his blood. Hossein at the end, is it Hossein?
Yeah. Hossein, yeah.
Like he had just done all that heroin.
Done all that heroin. Like,
does she get high off of killing people that have done drugs? Is this a Dare movie?
So I saw a thread that she kills people who do shit to Ati, but we're both looking at the homeless person she kills, right? Like that
exactly.
is
why did she kill that guy?
Why did she kill that guy? And
was he doing drugs?
If we consider was he doing drugs, and that's what is sort of her interest.
That's her addiction, right?
That's her addiction.
These guys are addicted to drugs. She's addicted to drug blood.
And like she is tempted to bite Arash after he takes the X.
Oh yeah.
But she then
that's right.
Doesn't bite him. So yeah, maybe that is it. And maybe that is actually why they kind of have a perfect let the right one in sort of relationship there at the end, because he can be the drug dealer and then she can feed off of the
There we go.
users.
Yeah. Huh.
I didn't
does
really see
come
that
full circle,
until you just
doesn't
said that. Yeah, I think that might be it. I mean, I think she is specifically protecting Ati when she attacks Saeed and Hussein, but when she attacks the homeless guy, that has... I mean, I think she does that right after not biting Arash, but I think you're right that she goes after people who are on drugs, so there's some sort of addiction there.
Yeah, which kind of makes this movie about addiction in a lot of ways, which is something that's explored in vampire movies sometimes.
Specifically in another vampire western, Near Dark.
Exactly right. That's exactly where I was going with it.
Another
that
vampire
movie,
western directed by a woman.
Wow. Yeah, it is actually. Interesting how that kind of spills over into this, isn't it? Yeah, because that movie is all about vampires, but it's like, well, it could just be about heroin addicts too.
Yeah. And that Near Dark, I can see where you would get the idea for Bad City from Near Dark, because they go in that bar and slaughter those people, and it's basically just like, okay, and next day.
And throw them out in the dead pit, just like you do in Bad City.
The dead pit, yeah.
Bad City has a dead pit.
They have a dead pit, and that's something I want everybody, like, just realize this is not some sort of depiction of Iran. They don't have dead pits. It's supposed to illustrate to us how Bad City is, that they have so many drug overdoses and violent deaths that they just throw them in a pit. That is not something common in Iran.
I'll tell you what, though. Do you think that Jeffrey Dahmer would have as much fun in a dead pit as we did in a ball pit as children at McDonald's? I'm just saying. Imagine a Dahmer just filled with glee, just swimming up and in and out of those bodies.
He comes out and throws an eyeball at somebody.
Then he ducks back under the swell of bodies. Now you got to come find me. You're it.
I'm Dahmer. Mommy, do you have my sippy cup of vodka?
Yeah. Oh man,
that's the
all the fun
Dahmer.
times at the play
cup full.
At the play pit at McDahmer's.
McDahmer's.
The McRib really takes on a different meaning at McDahmer's.
It really does.
McDahmer's, dude. Why have we never fucking figured this out? This is a trademark
amazing.
Dad and Lovely moment right here. McDahmer's. Holy shit.
The guy taking your order is a sex zombie.
Yeah, obviously.
Welcome to McDonald's.
Can I take your order and suck your cock? But of course, their ice cream machine would always be down.
Always. Every time you want it.
McDonald's. This is the best idea ever.
It really is.
So yeah, Bad City is just a place that is just kind of terrible, and that's just the way it is. Yeah, they have a pit of bodies because I guess it's just such a violent place, and that's one of those things that like is just shown to us, never even remotely explained. Nobody in town is like, so do you think this dead pit thing is weird? It's just kind of
it just is
something
what
they're
it
used
is.
to, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, it's strange. But you know, I mean, the other way of setting up It's a Bad City would be like a B story with other terrible events and just showing like maybe a shootout or something, and all of that's going to cost extra money. Yeah. But just a big pit full of dead people outside of town, it's like, okay, shit's bad here. Gotcha. Like,
And you're right. Killing
Yeah.
people and acquiring bodies is free. It doesn't cost a dime
It's
to
true.
murder somebody. Cheap
well, you gotta
special
pay
effects.
for whatever it is unless you use your hands.
Dude,
Kill with
you're telling
your
me
bare
you can't,
hands,
you can't walk
kids.
outside and find a big rock or a brick?
True. You
Go
know what?
totally
use,
Kane
Use
style.
the environment if you're out there murdering.
I'm telling you, man, Kane was the original innovator. He just used what he had available. He's like, there's a big old rock. I can kill somebody with that, I guess.
Let me tell you this: ain't got to register a rock, do you?
No.
Ain't no nosy guy behind the counter remembers you buying a rock.
Not at all.
We are probably helping out a serial killer right now. Don't
Yeah.
listen to us, serial
Yeah,
killer.
don't. You'll get caught.
You probably won't. God damn it.
Damn it all. Shit. But yeah, just big old pit of bodies. Pretty cheap special effect, and it does inform you about this city a little bit. So
It does,
I'll say
yeah.
it's effective.
It's effective, yeah, but as you said, it's not clear. It's not like especially when you're introducing another culture. Americans are kind of dumb.
Yeah.
In general, the English-speaking world is kind of dumb. We don't know a lot about other cultures, so I would say a lot of people watched it and was like, wow, that's probably how it is in Iran, I reckon. Probably just throw dead people outside your city.
Probably right.
Probably right, yeah. But yeah, it's a bad city.
It's an interesting flick. Like, this is one of those ones where if you watch it and you don't like it or you were bored by it, I totally get it. Like, this isn't one of those movies where I'm like, if you don't like this movie, fuck you. You know, it's not really one of those flicks.
Yeah,
There's not a lot of
I
there's a
get
lot of
it
people
if
that
you
aren't
don't
gonna
get
like
into
it.
Yeah.
And I understand that. But at the same time, I feel like even if you don't like it, I feel like you will walk away from this movie going, well, I've never seen anything like that before.
Right.
It's a really unique movie. I mean,
It's very unique.
not only just for the setting, like, it's not just unique because, oh my gosh, there's no white people in this. That's not what makes it unique. Like, the story itself is unique. Also, the setting enhances that.
Yeah.
So I think everybody should be able to give it a little bit of credit, at least for that, even if you do find the movie slow. It is a slow-going flick.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. You're going to be looking at pretty things the whole time and observing interesting characters, mainly not talking, sometimes talking. Maybe they're not talking, though. Maybe that's fine. Maybe you're listening to some cool jams. Maybe that's what you need in your life. It's a unique flick, man. Do you have any other final thoughts, observations about this thing?
You know, I think we've kind of, picked over
We
it.
sucked it dry.
Yeah, we've sucked it dry. It's there. There's a lot to it, but it's also very simple. It's a complex moral world, but the story is simple, and we root for the protagonists. It's not hard to find the girl kind of adorable, dancing by herself, skateboarding by herself. Like, she's cute. Then she's this cute guy who
Total hunk. This movie is just full of hot people.
Yeah,
Good
it's
Lord.
true. It's a very attractive cast. But Arash is, we see him and we see, like, he's in a bad situation, making the best of it. I actually noticed something that I've never noticed before. I think that him punching the wall and getting the cast is a really smart, like, little move to keep us kind of sympathetic for him when he starts selling drugs. I think a cast makes you automatically sympathetic. You're like, oh, what happened?
It can, but sometimes when you see people wearing a neck brace in public, you're like, oh, you're faking it.
That guy.
They never really have a neck problem. They're always faking it.
It's
so it can
always
work.
fake.
A cast is way more sympathetic, though, than a neck brace. It's true.
But yeah, I think we're brought in very well to the protagonist and stuff, and everybody else is just such a well-drawn character that it's just a real simple story that is very unique, creative take, very beautifully shot, well acted, well written. I don't have a lot of complaints about it. It's a solid and interesting take on the vampire genre. And I enjoy watching it, but it is a little long. It's got its issues. I think for me, this is Man, I don't know. I'm bouncing around between like an 8 and a 7.5. I'm gonna go for the higher 8. Like an 8. It's a very solid, well done movie that I don't have the real problems with. But I do get that others may.
I get it, man. I get it. And I just do appreciate that, here we are, well, when this came out anyway, which is just a few years ago, but like here we are on this side of the fucking millennium, and we're still like, oh, actually, that's a new setting a vampire hasn't been in yet. Like, vampire movies are kind of the original stuff of the horror monster movie in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I mean, go back to Nosferatu and shit like that. Like, we've had vampire movies as long as we've had movies, y'all.
Yep.
And the fact that somebody was able to come around and be like, I don't know, here's something you've not seen with a vampire before.
Yeah.
Fuck. That's awesome. I can't really think of anything off the top of my head. I'm like, oh, a vampire that's a rock star. Oh, seen it. Like, that's been done. Like, I can't really think of many times this hasn't happened. And it makes me interested to think, too, about, like, what other context have we not seen vampires in and how cool that could be, So this is one of those movies that is not only cool for being unique, but it's also cool because it makes you realize that ideas that have been around this long still have untapped potential. Like, there's still more blood to squeeze from that stone. Ooh.
And
so
vampires love blood. So if they could get it from stones, they'll get it.
Mm-hmm. They're going to get that blood. That's right. Yeah, I think it's cool. I do think that, like I said, some of the shots and scenes linger a bit long. They're always there for a reason, but they overstay a little bit, I think. And I do think I would have liked to have seen some more juice. I think a little bit more brutality is part of what makes, like, let's say, Let the Right One In, which I think this movie shares some similarities to.
Sure.
Makes that movie so effective is because, you have the central character of vampire in that movie who is sweet and lonely and innocent, and you can't help but care about him. And then they do heinous, brutal stuff, and it reminds you of, like, oh yeah, this character is a vampire. This character is a monster. And I think that's part of what makes that so good and so relatable in a lot of ways. The girl in this isn't necessarily all that relatable. Like, we don't really get a ton about her character, so I think it keeps it interesting and ambiguous, but it also makes it a little bit hard to root for that character and relate to that character sometimes. But still, like I said, at the end of the day, it's a gorgeous movie, and I've never seen anything like it. Soundtrack is boss. I think like 7.5 from me is where I would put this as well. Yeah, it's not one of those ones that I'm always going to be in the mood to see, because it is, as
like
you
What
said,
We Do in the Shadows or something. That's
like, I'll watch that anytime, man.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime. But this is one of those movies where if I was in the mood to watch something a little bit more quiet and contemplative, and something where I don't mind keeping my eyes glued to the screen so I can read all the dialogue and stuff like that, then it's definitely a unique one for sure. So yeah, I'm going to say 7.5.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, looking forward to hearing what you guys think about this one over on the Facebook page and the Instagram page and all the other places y'all can find us.
That's right. Yeah, over on Twitter and Instagram, we're at Dead Lovely Pod. We're on the Facebook at facebook.com/Dead and Lovely. We're on Discord. I'll post that link every Friday. We have a Friday night streaming chat in which we watch. Screaming chat.
That's right. There you go.
We watch a horror movie and discuss it over Discord. It's fun. We usually watch pretty bad movies, and we usually get pretty drunk. So come on over next Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Show up.
That's right. That's a good time. And if you had a good time listening to this episode, you can help us out for free by going on Apple Podcasts, rating and reviewing. I didn't get nearly enough reviews during the month of October. Come on, where them reviews at? Get on there. Drop it when it just takes a second. And it really does help us out a lot. If you want to help us out with dollar papers, you can do that too.
Yeah, you can go to patreon.com/dead and lovely. If you become a $1 patron, or higher, you get access to our Patreon exclusive episodes. If you become a $5 patron, you get to submit a movie to be randomly drawn, perhaps from the smoking bowl over here, and then we will review that movie. Speaking of, Ben,
what?
Next week we're going to be covering a Patreon pick.
You don't say. When you drew out of the smoking bowl yourself?
Pulled right out of there. Just yoink.
Right from the depths. Oh my God. What movie is it, Steve?
Why, of course it's Pan's Labyrinth, submitted by Laura Latour.
Oh my Lord. That person chose that movie?
I know. It's a shock or not.
Wow. It either sounds exactly like what I would expect out of that person, or a total surprise, because I have, or maybe I haven't seen it, and I loved it or hated it.
Yes.
You'll have to find out next week, I guess. So be sure to tune in next week, where we'll be covering that Patreon pick. And again, support us on Patreon. Get your movie thrown into the smoking bowl. Maybe it'll be yours next month. That's right. And yeah, we'll also have some new Patreon-only content coming out here really soon for you guys. I'll be probably talking about that here in just a second, Steve, after we finish this episode up.
Yes, sir. Uh-huh.
Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode of Dead and Lovely. You guys are fantastic. We have been Uncle Ben.
Hollywood Steve.
And we've been Dead and Lovely. We'll catch you guys on the flippy side. Bye. Bye.
So Ben, I was thinking the other day.
Mm-hmm.
You know the boyfriend pillow you can get? It's got a little arm you can wrap around yourself.
Yeah, it kind of keeps you cozy in the nighttime when you might be feeling maybe just a little lonesome. I think a lot of people need that these days. I get it.
Do you think the original inventor of that may have been one Jeffrey Dahmer, who was attempting to make a sex slave, but maybe had some other experiments along the way, like, what if I just cut off the torso and cuddle with it?
I think you might be onto something right there. I think he very well could have been the inspiration for the body pillow. He took it a little bit more literally, like in terms of the seesaw that leans from body and the other side is pillow. His seesaw was definitely flipped more towards
He's closer
body.
to body, but he was using it as a pillow. Now, do you think that my pillow guy, who used to be a cocaine addict, as far as I believe I heard, you think maybe he, back in the 80s, stumbled into Jeffrey Dahmer's house? It was like,
oh, yeah?
What the fuck is going on here? And Dahmer was just cuddling up, and he was like, it's my pillow. And the guy was like, oh, I got an idea. I'll end up in the White House somehow.
Dude, I would have loved if it was actually this completely bizarre full circle scenario where it went from Jeffrey Dahmer made the first pillow body. He saw it and was inspired by it and was like, I think it'd be softer if I made it out of a pillow. So then it became a body pillow. Like, it's this bizarre, it just keeps looping around and around and around. I think that's how it goes.
Hi, I'm Mike Lindell, and here's a human torso to lay your head on. That didn't work, so he decided, well, let's try a pillow.
It seems like more people will get behind that, I think. It seems like a little easier sell.
Yeah. Awesome.
I'm glad you drove it that way, because I was like literally gonna bring up the My Pillow guy.
Yeah.
So,
well, yeah.
perfect.
I mean, obviously, that guy's definitely on something.
Oh, he's definitely creepy as shit too.
Big Trump supporter.
Yeah,
he is
big
real
old
creepy.
Trump supporter.
You know, like, I don't know if you've seen many of those commercials, because Emily and I used to watch the Game Show Network, and they would come on a lot. And he always wears this big ass cross on the outside of his shirt and tie.
That
and that's just like
really
the sleaziest thing. Yeah. It's just like, oh,
it's
that
like, I
guy's
want
a
you to
piece of
see
shit.
this.
Yeah.
Or he's really scared of vampires. Might be that.
Maybe Mike Lindell's a secret monster hunter. That's how he came across Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah, that's the whole origin story right there.